Welcome to Pinnacle's NHL Best Bets. The second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs have arrived. I'm Anthony Bruno, joined by Scott Cullen on behalf of Pinnacle. Just like we did in the first round of the playoffs, we are going to run through every series in the second round, give you our best bets and predictions, and then we're going to see if our predictions for the Stanley Cup are still the same. Maybe we changed our minds. So stay tuned until the very end for that. But Scott, let's dive right into Hurricanes Rangers because obviously we're already one game in. Before game one, the Hurricanes were favorites in this series. They were priced at around minus 159. Now, after losing the first game, they're obviously underdogs. And you were very bullish on this Hurricanes team. So where are you standing right now?
Yeah, it's I'm still bullish on the Hurricanes. But obviously, when you lose the first game, it maybe causes a little bit of doubt. The reason I was bullish on the Hurricanes, they were the best possession team in the league. Corsi percentage over 60% this year. Expected goals percentage over 57.5%. Both numbers were the best marks in the league. They also had the league's best penalty killing. And so the fact that the Rangers scored 2 power play goals in game one, that's great for the Rangers. I'm not sure they can count on the power play to carry them through this series, given Carolina's penalty killing success. And so that's kind of the reason that I'm still siding with Carolina, and certainly having lost a game already, the odds are more favorable now. If you want to take Carolina, they're plus 116 on Pinnacle to win this series, and I'm still a believer, I guess, in the Hurricanes. I'm not swayed by them losing that first game in New York.
I'm right there with you. I'm still a believer in this Canes team as well, and I think this is a great spot to bet them now that they're down one game and they're dogs at this point. Would I like a little bit better odds? Maybe, but you mentioned it. I mean, they were dominant all year when you look at all the underlying numbers. And this Rangers team, we talked about this on the first show. They had a +1 goal differential at 5-on-5 in the regular season. Their power play has been humming in the playoffs. They're operating at over 44% right now. They scored 2 power play goals in the first game. Is that going to continue? Maybe. I mean, we've seen teams make some pretty deep runs leaning on a great power play. Like, obviously, like Edmonton kind of does the same thing. Edmonton, I know, has better 5-on-5 numbers than the Rangers do, but I'm not sure if it's going to continue. I would rather take the better team at 5-on-5. The team that displayed that they were better all season long. So, yeah, I'm also riding with the Hurricanes as well, and I think that they're going to come back to win this series.
Well, look at us taking the now underdog Hurricanes to go. All right.
Love it. All right, so let's stay in the Eastern Conference and go to Bruins and Panthers. I'll let you start off with this one because – listen, I don't think this is going to be a very long series, but I'll let you tell us where you're leaning first in this series.
Well, the interesting thing is that the Bruins won the head-to-head matchups this year. And when I look at these teams, I think the Panthers are clearly better. And I think Boston's best chance is basically if Jeremy Swayman continues to play as well as he did in the first round against Toronto, he could steal them the series. But that's kind of where it is. We talked about this going into the Toronto series, that the Bruins are no longer this dominant possession team. They were kind of middle of the pack this year. And if they're running kind of middle of the pack possession-wise, that's a problem against Florida because Florida's a strong possession team. Sergei Bobrovsky had a really strong season in goal. And if he continues, his first round against Tampa Bay was only so-so, but if Bobrovsky plays well, this becomes a real problem for Boston, I think, because kind of they don't have the same top-end talent that the Panthers do, which is kind of strange to say, but like the Panthers, the production they got out of like Tkachuk and Verhaeghe in the first round, and then you've got Barkov, like being able to spread that out among a couple of lines, I think that gives them a clear advantage. And so, Boston's best chance is for a goaltender to steal the series, and I hate picking a team based on just their goaltending to win a series. That's asking kind of too much of one player. So as much as the Panthers are kind of heavily favored here, I'm on the Panthers side.
Yeah, I'm all over the Panthers as well, but you said it. The Bruins won the season series 4-0. Yeah. They swept this Panthers team. Now listen, 3 of the 4 games were 1-goal games, and 2 of those games went to overtime, but The Bruins, they went 4-0 against the Panthers in the regular season, 4-0 against the Leafs in the regular season. We'll see if they can continue it here in the second round. But I think you nailed it. I think the Bruins' only avenue to victory here is Jeremy Swayman standing on his head again. He was ridiculous in the first round against the Leafs. I believe he finished with a .950 save percentage. Yep. Is he going to do the same thing against the Panthers? I don't think so, because unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs, I have a lot more faith in this Panthers team to actually generate offense. Unlike that Leafs team that scored 12 goals in 7 games. I'm so bullish on the Panthers. I said it on the first show that they were my pick to win the Stanley Cup. They're just such a well-rounded team. Now, as it stands right now, they're minus 205 to win this series. Yesterday, when I was looking at the odds, the Panthers were sitting at around minus 180, which was obviously a better price. So I'm not loving the minus 205 at this point. But I actually think this is going to be a pretty quick series. I think we can get a little creative with this one because this Bruins team, like watching them in that Leafs series, they were struggling to generate offense. They do not have a lot of top-end players, as you mentioned, and I think they're going to be overmatched. I think we can get creative here and either take the Panthers in 4 for a sweep. I know that's maybe getting, maybe I'm a little bit too
strong.
It's a little too strong, maybe, but Panthers in 4 priced at plus 721, or Panthers in 5 at plus 350. I kind of like that one a little bit better. I think this is going to be a quick series. Or if you think the Panthers are going to win in 6 games or less, you can take them at minus 1.5 games at plus 105. So some solid options across the board if you're bullish on the Florida Panthers. All right, Scott. Western Conference. The all-Canadian matchup, Oilers and Canucks. Where are you leaning in this one?
Well, I think the Canucks, well, they won the Pacific Division. They don't really have this overwhelming aura, I guess, coming into the playoffs. Like I like Nashville to beat them in that first round, and honestly, if Nashville didn't collapse late in that game that they gave up a 3-1 lead, late and lost in overtime, if they didn't do that, Nashville might have been able to take the series. I thought that was just a crushing blow for them. But watching how Vancouver struggled to generate shots in that series, I think they're going to have a really hard time keeping pace with Edmonton. And Edmonton's overall game, looked pretty good against Los Angeles, but the area to kind of hang your hat on here for the Oilers is their power play. And I know we talked about, the Rangers may not be able to continue their power play success against Carolina, but the Oilers have had like one of the best power plays in the league for like 5 years running, right? They've been in the top 5, I believe, for the last 5 years, but they've, I think, had the best goals per 60 at 5-on-4 for 3 of those 5 years. This year they were second behind Tampa Bay. Like, this power play just clicks at a rate that really no other power play in the league has over the long period. And so you can't really expect that Vancouver's going to shut them down. And going into the series, I don't know what the goaltending situation is for Vancouver. If it's going to be Artur Shilovs again, like, he played great and helped them win against Nashville, but I don't know that I really want to count on him to, okay, you get to now stop McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman on the Oilers power play. And so I think the Oilers have too much firepower for this series, and I realize that's going to be a pretty popular pick. So my inclination in this series is probably to take the Oilers minus 1.5 to lower the price a little bit there and give you a chance to win. But I'm I guess a skeptic of the Vancouver Canucks, so I'm going to take the Oilers here to win and win handily.
Vancouver's had a great season. I don't think anyone before the season started expected them to be this good, but I think it ends here. I'm right there with you. This Oilers team, right now, they are actually the Stanley Cup favorites at Pinnacle. We all know how great they are offensively. Their power play, as you mentioned, Scott, one of the best in the NHL. And right now, yeah, I mean, you said it. They're priced at minus 254. I don't love taking that. That almost wants... Yeah. I almost kind of want to lean to the Canucks in that case, just based on the price here. But I have a very hard time seeing the Canucks actually winning this series. But kind of like we talked about with the Bruins, how, they dominated the Leafs. And the Panthers in the season series, well, the Canucks, they dominated the Oilers in the season series, sweeping that 4-0. But 3 of those games were within the first month of the season, and the last game that these teams played, McDavid didn't even play. So it's you can't really look at the season series in this case. And I know Vancouver
fans... There's an
asterisk
on it.
Exactly, right? Even though Vancouver fans will be quick to say, oh, we dominated Edmonton in the regular season. But when you actually look at it, it kind of doesn't mean too much in this context. The Canucks also had a .951 save percentage against the Oilers in the regular season. And the Oilers, their save percentage against the Canucks, .811. And again, that was in that first month when, an Oilers goaltender they couldn't stop a beach ball. Exactly, right? So... No, I'm leaning Oilers minus 1.5 games as well. I mean, you could look at some of these other markets, like if you really think the Oilers are going to dominate, kind of like how I mentioned, I think the Panthers are going to wipe the floor with Boston. You could look at like Oilers in 4 or 5, but I kind of like that minus 1.5 games at minus 139 as well. So we're both on the Oilers to advance to the conference finals. All right. The last series of the second round. This looks like a heavyweight showdown here. The Colorado Avalanche, currently priced as plus 106 underdogs against the Dallas Stars at minus 121. I'm very interested to see your take on this series.
I was going to say, our first 3 series seem relatively predictable, but this one is serious coin flip territory. Because coming into the postseason, I really like the Stars, and they had a really tough matchup getting the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round. And yes, it was tough, but they made it through, and full credit to that. But wow, the Colorado Avalanche looked really good against Winnipeg. Now, obviously, Winnipeg may not be the same kind of test as Vegas, but really my big concern with Colorado coming into the playoffs was Alexander Georgiev, right? Their goaltender, who was just brutal down the stretch. I think he had an .856 save percentage his last 8 starts. And so taking that into the playoffs against Connor Hellebuyck, I was like, I don't know how they're going to overcome that. And in game 1, that's exactly what happened. They looked absolutely terrible as Georgiev. I think his save percentage was .696 for game 1. They lost 7-6. But then, Georgiev kind of found his game again and was, adequate. You don't need him to be great. You just need him to be a solid NHL goaltender, and that's what he was. And the Avalanche high-octane offense went to work because they just started speed-bagging the Winnipeg Jets. And when you look at, I think Colorado, the one area that everyone looks at McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen. They're all obviously great players, and they can swing the difference in a series on their own. But I think Valeri Nichushkin and Arturi Lehkonen, when those guys are healthy, make a massive difference. It gives them more depth to their attack. I mean, Nichushkin scored 7 goals against Winnipeg, so that's pretty good in 5 games. But they also drive possession, and so Colorado was like a good possession team this year. But when you add a healthy Lehkonen and a healthy Nichushkin to the lineup, well, then they become closer to a top tier possession team, which then kind of puts them on level footing with the Stars. And if you got these 2 teams on fairly level footing, and one team has Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, well, now I'm starting to lean to the Colorado Avalanche, and it's amazing how that can change over the course of like 5 games against Winnipeg. But I thought the Avs just looked like a powerhouse, and so now I am now looking at the Avalanche to upset the Stars.
All right, so we were pretty aligned on these first 3 series, but I'm still rolling with the Dallas Stars here. And now I don't love that they're the favorites here. And listen, obviously they're going to be the favorites. They had a better season than Colorado. Their underlying numbers were better than Colorado. Yeah. I said it on the first show. Dallas, I have them, in that group, like my tier for like the 3 most well-rounded teams are Dallas, Carolina, and Florida. Like when you just look across the board, offense, defense, goaltending, I think they're a fantastic team. Now listen, the Avs did win the season series 3-1. They outscored the Stars 20-15 total, 13-9 at 5-on-5. I think this is going to be a good series. The one thing, if you're looking at the Dallas Stars, and something that you could look at from the last series as a positive, I mean, obviously they came back from 2-0 down on home ice, which was great. But 2 of their best players, Rupe Hintz and Joe Pavelski, combined for 1 point in the first round against Vegas.
And Hintz's point was an empty net goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Hintz's point was an empty net goal. So they really didn't do anything 5-on-5 at all.
Insane. So you got to think, like, if those guys could get it going and produce, I mean, like, remember last season, Roope Hintz was one of the leading scorers in the playoffs. I believe the guy had like 24 points in 19 games. And in round one against Vegas, you know, him and Pavelski were invisible. Even Pavelski, he was one of the top scorers in last year's playoffs. So if those guys were, or at least I think Pavelski, he had a point a game, but he also missed some games due to injury. But I mean, he's always been a playoff performer, that dude. So if those guys can get going, I love the depth of the Dallas Stars. Obviously, their top end talent does not stack up with Colorado. I mean, really, no one's top end talent, maybe outside of Edmonton's, stacks up with Colorado. But I'm still very bullish on this Stars team. I think they're going to be able to run and gun a little bit more with Colorado, and I think the Stars are capable of playing like different styles. You know, if you want to kind of grind it out, if you get into a run and gun game with them, I think they have the talent across the board to kind of play any style. And Wyatt Johnston, their 20-year-old stud, he's been fantastic. He's been unreal so far. So I'm going to be rolling with the Stars, and I also kind of like the Stars to win this in 6 games or less at plus 155.
Wow.
I just think I don't think it's going to be as easy for the Avalanche as it was in that first round against the Winnipeg Jets. So I am rolling.
I don't anticipate
with Dallas. But
impressive. Well, and at least we disagree on one series. I know in the first round we had several disagreements, and I think you won almost all of them. So in this case, we'll see how the Avs and Stars play out. But I just those last 4 games, watching Colorado go, that looked like the Stanley Cup version of Colorado to me. And so we'll see whether they can carry it out against Dallas. Like that, this will be a real test for sure for both teams.
No, and you said it, man. Like Colorado, the way they were playing in that first round, I mean, they look extremely dangerous, and I don't blame anyone who wants to ride with this team as underdogs in this series against Dallas. But before we wrap things up, Scott, are you sticking with your Stanley Cup pick that you had in the first show? Are you sticking with your Carolina Hurricanes?
Yes, I'm going to stick with the Canes, and obviously the odds are a little bit better now that they lost the first game against the Rangers, but I still expect them to get past the Rangers, and I think that the Canes, that we're talking about teams that are well-rounded. I mean, the Hurricanes have depth, they have veterans, and as I said on the first show, when they added Jake Gensel at the trade deadline, that gave them another game-breaking offensive player that they sorely needed. And so I'm still riding with the Canes, and obviously would feel better about it if they had won the first game against the Rangers, but I'm not throwing in the towel on that just yet.
So you're still riding with the Hurricanes, and I am still riding with the Florida Panthers. Like I said, I still think they're one of the most well-rounded teams in the league. They were fantastic in the first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think honestly they have the easiest second round matchup, and maybe this is going to sound terrible in 2 weeks when this is going 7 games and Boston moves on to the conference finals. But I think the Panthers are in a great spot here to get to the conference finals. Then I think they're going to have a real test, because I agree with you. I think Carolina is going to get through as well, and that's going to be a true heavyweight showdown if we get Canes and Panthers in the conference final. But I will stick with the Panthers right now. And yeah, listen, if you want to bet on Cup Futures, Series Futures, head to Pinnacle throughout the entire Stanley Cup playoffs, even if you're just betting on games on a nightly basis, some of the best odds in the industry. You can bet that any slate throughout the NHL playoffs, you are going to find some bet where Pinnacle has the best price. So you are missing out big time if you are not heading to Pinnacle to bet on the Stanley Cup playoffs. But that is going to do it for our second round Stanley Cup betting preview. We will be back to tee up the conference finals, but until then, enjoy the playoffs, and remember to bet smart and bet Pinnacle.